I've been pugging Mythic Plus in a variety of roles since the day it started, and season after season, I time and brick hundreds of keys. Over the years, I feel like I've developed a pretty good sense of why a Mythic Plus run might be doomed, and in this video, I want to go over some of the most common mistakes I see people making that absolutely brick keys. First things first, you suck, I suck, we all suck. One of the hardest parts of improving at anything is accepting that we are not that great at it to begin with. I often rewatch my streams and absolutely cringe at things I see myself doing in my own gameplay. But the player who is convinced they never do anything wrong is a player who is never going to get any better. Unless you're some top 0.1% Giga Chad, chances are there are a load of things you could be doing better in your keys. If you don't care about getting better, cool, just get in there and swing your weapon around and flame your group members when things don't go your way. But since you are watching this video, I imagine some part of you cares about playing well in Mythic Plus. You should absolutely be happy when you know you totally nailed something and did something well. But you should also always be asking yourself what you could have done better when something goes wrong. The next thing I noticed that bricks keys is that people are way too concerned with their DPS or HPS output. Close your details add-on if you have to. Yes, high DPS makes everything easier, and I'm not saying you shouldn't be trying to do your rotation properly or anything, but compare the number of times you bricked a key over low DPS to the number of times you bricked a key because of unnecessary deaths or failure to do basic mechanics. For me, I couldn't even tell you how many more times it's the latter. If each player had to sacrifice 15% of their DPS to ensure they were on top of things like kicks, stops, and defensives, you have no idea how much of a difference it would make for the better. I recently pugged 2 back-to-back keys on a couple of my healers. They were both black hold, one was like a 25 on my shaman, and then the next was a 17 on my druid, both fortified. On the shaman, it was a walk in the park. Sure, it had its moments, but I knew for the most part when the damage was going to come out, so I could be prepared for it. I had time to DPS and focus on mob control because people in the group were correctly interrupting, stunning, stopping things for the most part. But then there was a 17 key on my druid. I may as well have healed this key blindfolded. It was completely unpredictable when someone was going to drop to 10% all of a sudden, or whether or not any mob abilities would be stopped. I was panic pressing my cooldowns and doing as much emergency healing as I could, to the point that I barely had a chance to contribute anything outside of just heals. And this is why we fail. No one in this key was doing a thing to prevent mobs from running wild on our group, and we were losing people left and right. Stopping incoming damage and avoiding all avoidable damage should be literally everyone in the group's #1 priority. Your kicks, stuns, and stops should be treated as cooldowns and used often. The next thing, the right route is the familiar route. Don't overthink your routes. You might have seen something super cool done in the MDI or on a stream, but expecting a group of random pugs to successfully pull it off is a big gamble. Save the advanced routes for the advanced keys. If you were a math professor, would you go to a classroom of first graders and try to teach them calculus and then get mad at them when they couldn't do it? Of course not. So why do we do this in Mythic Plus? I can't tell you how many times I've seen a tank, oftentimes a really highly rated one, maybe just trying to carry a pal through a 16 key or something, try and pull off some cutting-edge min-max route with tons of skips or massive pulls, only to see it blow up in our faces and cause unnecessary wipes or awkward situations where someone dies and they can't do the skip again anyway. So this is just unnecessary. When there's no communication involved, you're best off doing the routes people are familiar with. In almost all cases, a clean run of a standard route is going to work out much better than a scuffed run of an advanced route. This applies to DPS as well as tanks. Your tank is going to play much better when they're doing a route they're familiar with rather than trying something new off the cuff in like a plus 26 key. If you want to practice a new or crazy route, do it with some friends or in a lower key where you know it's not going to be an issue. This might seem kind of boring, but I can't stress enough how many times I've seen a group totally capable of timing a key fall apart because they tried some over-the-top strategy that blew up in their faces. In just about all non-world first levels of keys, you actually don't need to do stuff like this. I have a ton of respect for tanks, and I think they probably carry the most responsibility in a group as to whether or not a key gets timed, but tanks, you can't autopilot your keys. Just because one group was super successful in constant chain pulls doesn't mean another will be. It always makes me laugh when everyone in a group is at 20% health and the tank goes charging into the next pull where some big damage will immediately go out. The next thing that bricks keys. no one is going to do the affixes for you. I don't know if there's any more really to be said about this one, but honestly, to be successful in pugs, I'd recommend you treat affixes as if they are solely your responsibility and try to take pride in your ability to take care of as many of them as possible. There are weak auras that can track things like how many afflicteds you take care of, and I try to make it my personal goal to absolutely destroy my entire team when it comes to this leaderboard. If you're expecting anyone else to do them, you're setting yourself up for failure, and any amount of DPS loss created by your using a GCD or whatever to take care of an affix makes 0% difference in your group's ability to time the key, most likely. However, an afflicted or incorporeal going off at just the wrong time can be the kind of thing that causes a wipe that will brick your key. So if you need to swap a talent around to take an ability that covers a weekly affix and you don't do that, you are basically trolling. Next up, use your whole kit. We talked about stuns, kicks, and CCs earlier, but what separates, say, an average player from a really good one? Differences in things like DPS and healing throughput might not even be that much, but the Ret Pally that bumps off his teammates' bleed, the Shadow Priest that's on top of all the big bursting mass dispels, the Hunter that knows how to cheese the tricky mechanic with a properly timed feign death, those are the guys going places. Honestly, tons of players do really good DPS, and I don't often remember a player from a previous group for numbers. I'm way more likely to remember them for some cool technique they pulled that got us out of a jam or made my life easier as a healer. And to me, this is actually one of the most fun parts of playing WoW, and that's kind of flexing what my class is capable of doing. To put yourself in position to actually do this, of course, you need to be mechanically able to pull it off, as well as have the knowledge of how to do it. Make sure all your tunes buttons are bound to a key. This might seem like a silly thing to say, but you shouldn't ever need to click or look for anything when it comes to your tune's abilities. DPS with the spell buttons, I'm looking at you. Make sure you've got that ability on a mouse over cast that you can get to quickly. And secondly, although you can always watch some stream to see how it's done, or probably look it up on one of the billion useful WoW websites, you can also just try stuff. Does Bop remove that debuff from the other DPS? I don't know. Throw it out there and find out. Can I stun out this cast? Only one way to find out. I honestly think it's better to get used to using your utility abilities and pressing those buttons, even if you're not doing them perfectly, just to build some muscle memory rather than just letting them sit. Number 5, stop dying. Seems obvious, right? Well, you'd think so, but having pugged all ranges of keys, I can confidently say that better players just do not allow themselves to die as easily as bad ones. Dying is, of course, the most costly thing you can do in a Mythic Plus run. It shaves off 5 seconds on its own, but then it either uses up a costly B-res or wastes more time as your group needs to 4-man the rest of the pull, and then take time either resing you or waiting for you to run back. And not dying is not limited to simply not standing in bad stuff on the ground either. If you're somewhat low on health and you know some sizable AoE damage is about to come out, what do? Are you hitting a defensive, healing yourself, using an immunity, drinking a health potion? You really shouldn't be dead without exhausting all those options that are available to you. You might watch a high-end stream and be like, how is it that it seems like no one's taking any damage here? And then look at your own runs where it seems as though health bars are rocketing up and down constantly. That's because those players are likely keeping themselves stable. Our next thing is to offload as much possible responsibility onto your UI as you can. This can sometimes be kind of a controversial one, but look, the game lets you do it, and literally all the best players in the world use this strategy. There must be some reason for it. In Mythic Plus, there is a ton of things to process and keep track of at once. And the more you can free up brain power and focus on a smaller number of things, the better you're going to do. Have audio cues for important mechanics you need to do that actually register with your brain. Have big obnoxious warnings for things you need to remember to do. Just remember to have literally no alerts for things that do not matter to you to compensate for this. I go in depth on this in a video that's hopefully floating on the screen right now. You might want to check it out if you want to know more about it. So do any of these things sound familiar to you guys? Because I've been seeing this stuff over and over forever, both with myself and with others. Let me know in the comment section if anything rings true with you. And if you want to check out my stream, as always, I'm live right here on YouTube, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday nights, 9 p.m. Pacific. Got a great community of players over there. Love to see you there sometimes. Until next time, guys, happy pugging.